on this. Damn it.
I can repeat it. I took that sweater off because I get so nervous sometimes and I sweat when I'm nervous, and I'm gonna be nervous talking about my book. And so I gotta have a t-shirt on instead of a sweater on so that I don't sweat. That's bad. I'm still gonna sweat.
Start stripping. You're fine.
Yeah, if I started to take off my t-shirt, I have a sports bra underneath. So
we're good.
We're good.
Oh, I love it. I love that you're nervous. That means that we're on the right track. We need a word for like excited and nervous. Excited? No. Nope. Can't think of one. Anyway, we'll have to figure it out.
Nearsighted.
It's almost like neurosis. It sounds like it's about right.
I see the parallel.
Oh my gosh. I came up with something. You know how everybody, I'm gonna do a little clip later today on my Insta and TikTok and all that. Somebody may have come up with this already, but I was talking to somebody and it's like all this, like I always get pissed off when someone's like new year, new me. I'm like, no, it's not a new you. Like it's still you. It's still you. It's just a different version of you. So when she sent me something similar to that, I said, new year, true you. Like this is the year that you're coming back to yourself. So I'm like, hopefully that'll like become a thing, right? I want it to become a thing because it really is. It's like we're coming back to ourselves. Like I have this thing too on my new vision board where it's just like finding your way back home, right? Where it's just like, yeah, so good. So good. So anyway.
I love that so much. It reminds me of that meme of like we're all just maybe spiritual beings or stardust, or we're all just walking each other home. We're all just walking each other home. You know?
Oh, I love it. Maybe that could be another one. Hold on. Let me write this down. Let me walk you home. For like one of our podcasts.
I like that.
Okay. All right, let's do this shit.
All right.
Yeah, girl, ground yourself too. Do you have one of those red jaspers? Ground it. Hematite. Yeah.
Okay. And welcome back, friends. We are with you once again for another fun episode of Sit Crooked, Talk Straight. My name is Katie Myers.
And I'm Leanne Jameson.
And we are sitting crooked. We are comfy. We are cozy. We've got our coffee. We are ready to shoot the shit, but no bullshit.
Katie took her shirt off.
What an intro. What an intro. I did take my sweater off because we're talking about my book today, and a section of my book, which I told Leanne as we were getting ready. I was like, I'm taking my sweater off because I get nervous. I sweat when I get nervous. And I know I'm like, my palms are a little sweaty, and I was like, I'm gonna get nervous. So like, I just need to take off the sweater so I can be more comfortable so that I can show up as my most authentic self, because that's part of the talk straight part of our gig here is we show up and we are honest, and I'm nervous. There's a nervous, exciting. Here's a question for you all.
We want to know.
Yes. If anybody can come up with a word that merges nervous and excited, let us know what it is. We tried for 2 seconds to come up with something, and it sounded more like neuroses than anything else, which we were like, yes,
that sounds good.
But not what we were really aiming for. And so I'm nervous, excited. I wrote a book, and I wrote a fucking book.
Yes, you did, bitch. Yes, you did. I mean, bitch in the most loving way.
I felt the term of endearment, truly.
Yeah, no, go. Okay,
I was
go.
so excited. I wrote a book. It is in the memoir self-help genre, because I have a story to tell, and I believe that each of you also have a story to tell. And my story, I won't go into too much detail because the blurb that I'm going to read from leads to a conversation that I think is going to hit home for a lot of people. So, my book is about my story, my childhood. I grew up with the overarching themes of divorce, eating disorder, depression, anxiety, suicidality. Then we get into adulthood and we get into more depression, infertility, more depression, anxiety, suicidality, and I'm a I'm a licensed clinical social worker who is trained and has a skill set that is well developed. I've spent many years developing this skill set of coping mechanisms and tools, and my story is still one of coming through the struggle, because that is, I have come through every single one of them. I was going to say my story is one of struggle, but that's not really the truth. My story is coming through
Mhm.
the struggle, surviving and learning how to thrive, um, after the struggle and with the struggle. And that's
Mm,
kind of tying it into what we're going to read. I'm going to read about today is that we bring with us parts of our stories, and we can either identify it and label it as, oh, that sucks. That's a death, that's a death sentence of a diagnosis, or that's, gosh, that's just like there's nothing you can do about that. Like, that's
right.
just the way that it is. But we can turn that into something really beautiful.
Well, yeah, and being able to look at, what we were talking about is this like from survival to superpower, part of, and Katie's going to read, or if you want to read part of your book,
Mhm.
or just sort of, the synopsis of it, but looking at, she was reading it to me before we were coming on. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm hearing is that, we can look at, we're going to be talking about the energy and like so many things, but we can look at certain coping mechanisms, certain skills that we've developed as children, as like you were saying, it's sort of this like, oh my gosh, like this sucks that I have this, or it's overwhelming, or like we can get stuck in the victim mode where we're blaming and like, fuck you, mom and dad, for doing this for me, all of that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
or we can look at it as this superpower. We can harness it as the superpower, because what we have identified is that a lot of our authentic parts were already developed, and then this actually, there are certain situations that took that beautiful gift that we had and sort of like supercharged it into conditioning and created it into this thing where it was based out of fear rather than love. It was based out of control rather than faith and letting
Mm,
go, right? So, and I know I'm sort of talking in generalities. We'll get more specific as Katie's going through this. But it's just out of all of the women that I know I've spoken to and Katie speaks to, and like we're not alone in this, and in understanding like how our past has shaped us, but also being able to heal that part of us so we can really see ourselves
mm,
for the gift that we have and the gift that we were given that was actually covered up
yeah.
by certain experiences that really created some hurt within us. So it is really, yeah, it's just like sort of, we were talking about this too. I'm like, this whole theme this year for me has been like the reminder of like, I'm coming home to myself. Right. I'm finding myself, like we go through ebbs and flows of knowing who we are, these moments of like feeling so secure, and then we can get sidetracked. But anyways, so yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So Katie's going to lead us off with this superpower that we both actually have, right? This gift that we both have, And then we're going to lead you through how that can actually be conditioned, how
Mm,
we utilize it in a sense of fear. What does that look like? And what does it look like to be able to separate from that and utilize it again as your superpower, as the gift that it was given to you, and harness that with all of its beauty?
mm,
So,
mm.
yes.
I love the synchronicity of all of this too, because before we got on to record this, I posted in my Facebook and Instagram a quote by Kierkegaard: "The most common form of despair is not being who you are."
Ah, I just got chills.
I posted
And then
that,
the true self too. It's not new me, it's true me. Like,
like, and like I'm with you on, like, I hope that catches fire with, the cliche, like, new year, new me. Well, and like you were saying, like, nope, you're still
it's still
you.
you.
You can have a new and improved version. And so, or a more true version. And so,
Yes.
anyway, I just love the synchronicity of everything and what we get to talk about. And anyway, I hope that this lands for some of you. So the section of the book is towards the beginning. I talk about um, my parents' divorce. So my parents got divorced when I was around 9 or 10. Um, I have used that event as one of the most defining and destructive and difficult parts of my life. Um, and through writing this book, really came to a different, I guess, appreciation. And really, not just through writing the book, through years of therapy. I've been working on this shit for a long time, y'all. Um, and and so if you also are working on something that you're like not quite there, like, don't give up. Don't
Hmm.
stop now. Don't drown 5 feet from shore. Like, there's probably a breakthrough coming. We just have to keep moving. But part of the book, and I'll read a little bit um, of it. I share a little bit about the details, not a ton, because it's my parents, and I wanted to honor some of their story remaining their story, but also it's my story. And so I took some liberties. Anyway, it starts off
Yeah.
in this section of: "Saying I was good at reading people was a blessing, a curse, and somewhat of an understatement. I began to concern myself with adult things mainly because I was exposed to them, but it also gave me a false sense of security and power. If I could tell that you were sad, then I could be what you needed in order to not be sad. If I knew you were angry, I learned to keep my distance, which would be better for both of us in the long run. If I knew you were happy, I could add to your happiness by doing and being more of what you wanted or needed. If I could read you just right, I could be a perfect little codependent child and everything would be okay because I would have this false sense of control and power over something that I was completely powerless to change." And then it goes on. I write this note to parents about keeping adult things adult, because for the love of God, adults, can we just keep adult things adult? And I'm not going to read this entire section, but it basically, that's what I say. Fucking
Hmm.
keep things. If you're an adult, don't lay your adult shit on your kids' shoulders, period.
Hmm.
They're not capable of holding the weight of whatever's going on. Adults keeping things adults is a really powerful lesson for some of us to learn.
Yeah.
I learned it very young, and then I go on after this little blurb where I basically hand it to adults who are minded. Um, I write a little letter to myself, and I do this throughout the whole book. Um, and it starts out, and I'll just read the beginning of it. "Dear sweet Katie, oh sweet child, I am so sorry that you learned this quote skill so young. This is so hard, and I know no one is actually verbalizing that or asking you how you are doing with all of this change. But you will be okay, I promise. Your mom and dad are doing the best they can. I know it doesn't seem that way." And I continue. And
Mm.
and so this highlights the part of my story, and I think a part of many of our stories, where we come to I like to call it like finding purpose in the pain. There's, with every
Yeah.
section of my book, every section of my story, there's purpose in the pain that I experienced. whether it was, being super sick from binge eating disorder and compulsive overeating and laxative use. I can find the beauty and the purpose in that pain today, which makes it, and some people might be like, oh, well, you're just telling yourself that so that you can be okay with it, which I'm totally fine with that being the narrative. I shit you not. That is fine if that is what people believe. I know that on a deeper level, on a psychic and like soul level, that each of these things shaped me. But I'll tell you, for a minute, it shaped me in a way that was really fucking destructive, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
played the victim, I played the martyr. I blamed mom and dad for every shit thing that happened to me in, certain time frames of my life. Well, if they had gotten their shit together, well, if they had done things differently, well, da 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 da. And so that was my conditioned self. Like that was
Yes.
the part of me that was using the circumstances to define me in a negative, victim, helpless, hopeless way. Right? Like
Right.
it was all conditioned.
And can I emphasize something? So in the conditioned self, right? It's so important to remember that our conditioned parts are our like younger parts, right? So that narrative for that story for that kid was absolutely true. They were the victim. They were
Okay.
not able to control any of that. They had to go along with it. They had to, learn a way to cope with it and do the best that they could. Now, as adults, we are empowered to choose differently, right? And that's the healing process that we go through, right? And that's why we go to therapy, and that's why I have my program, because this is everything that I went through to heal myself so that I can feel empowered and make different choices. So I just wanted to sort of like emphasize that of like this sweet, sweet conditioned part, truly like scared shitless, just trying to survive. And that's why we created this as like from survival to superpower, because we were just surviving. We didn't have a choice and what hand we were dealt, right? And now that we're adults, we do. We make choices every single day. We have that ability. We have that authority in our life. So being able to recognize those of right, a little bit more just like definition around like what we're actually talking about here, right? And that's why I think it's so beautiful and important that you wrote a letter at the end of each one of your episodes. And like, because that is like another healing process for like talking to that conditioned part of like, I love you, this isn't your fault, and we're doing this, right? So
Well, and I'll share with you a parallel that I'm just now kind of coming to recognize. Everything, by the way, everything is landing different for me today, by the way. Nothing that we're saying is like new or
mhm.
original. Like all of these things we have talked about ad nauseum. I mean, we've been at this podcast thing for a year and a half. We've been in the field for, gosh,
Almost
three
20 years.
3.5 decades between the two of us. Almost, no, almost 4 decades between the two of us.
Yeah. Yep.
But we're old. And
I
we,
embrace every fucking bit of it.
I
Anyway, go
mean,
ahead.
it's beautiful.
It is.
We've come a long way, baby.
Right.
Um, but this parallel of well, and things are landing differently for me this morning, and I'm here for it. I don't know why, but what you just said that made me think of the meditation, one of the meditations that we did in your coaching program, where we would invite all of our younger selves to the table, right? And then we would speak to them. And I remember so part of this meditation is um, identifying the conditioned part of ourselves and like how old they were and like what was going on during that time. And my condition, guess how old my little girl always was in every fucking meditation. She's 10.
Yeah.
And I can remember at one point being kind of like ugly to her, being kind of like, shut the fuck up, sit in the corner, be quiet, you're not in control, stop. And I remember, Leanne, you telling me and the group, but me specifically, it's okay to be loving to her. Matter of fact, we really need to be compassionate, and the kindness is required for us to truly heal this aspect of our stories. And so I began talking to my 10-year-old self and saying, girl, you carried the baton so far, and I'm going to carry it, right? Like you,
You can
I'm
let
not
go.
kicking you off the bus, but I am telling you that you can let go of these
Yeah.
things that you've been carrying with you. I no longer want you to drive the bus, but you are so welcome to be on the bus. Like you have to be on the bus,
Yeah.
um, in order for this to really like be my truest self. But it was through love and kindness and compassion. And so, yeah, I there's a really big parallel of the work that I did in your program and then how that translated
To
into
your book.
the book, and not even knowing it until even this moment, really like
Mm.
where that connected and potentially came from. And so, anyway, super grateful for that. Thank you.
So
Right? Like
cool.
that's
You're so
cool.
welcome. That
Yeah,
is pretty awesome.
that's cool. Um, so yeah, that I love the empowerment aspect of this. Right, like I'm 40, almost 41. By the time this airs, I will be 41,
Hmm.
and um, I consistently have to remind myself that, like, yes, these things happened. Like whatever it was, right? Like a failed relationship, parents not showing up, self harm, blah blah blah, not wanting to
Yep.
be on this earth anymore. Yeah, those are real things. How do I want those things to shape who I am today and how I then show up in the world for myself and others? Because I'm a therapist, I add the and for others. I think every
Yes.
one of us can add that in a contextually what that looks like for you might look a little bit different.
Well, and
But
in an
I'm trying to,
authentic way, not a people pleasing way, but like, how do I want to show up? How do I want to show up for myself in the world?
yes, because we're all showing up.
Yeah.
We all show
Yes.
up. And
Yes.
just what version of you are you going to allow to be what shines?
Hmm.
And for a long, long time, I would like I have a very dear friend. I won't call her by name, because I'll share she used to be super sarcastic, and I love that about her. And because she's funny as shit, right? Like you think of something snarky or sarcastic, and like she's already 2 steps ahead of you. And love that part of her. And she started getting not sarcastic. She started losing her sarcasm and her edge. And then she finally was like, yeah, through therapy, I really had to let go of like my sarcasm, because I had to learn how to communicate.
Hmm.
And I was like, I mean, hit me right between the eyes. I was like, yeah, like
Uh-huh.
we have these defense mechanisms and these coping things that, like these walls that we put up, these barriers that keep us, I'm going to use air quotes, safe,
Yep.
because it does it separates us from others. And I
Hmm.
used my story to separate. I was so separate from you, and you
Mm.
couldn't understand what I was going through because you had no idea what it was like when I grew up, and da, 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 and I was just so much separateness. And now I use that survival mechanism as my therapeutic superpower, where I
Hmm.
can say to clients in therapy and coaching sessions, I've been in a similar space. Um,
Yeah.
I I can't know exactly what you're feeling because all of our experiences are so vastly different, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
Because while the details might be different, the emotion, pain
That's
is the same.
That's what I was going to say is that there has been so many different studies and what is the universal language, and it's emotion, right? We may have different experiences, and we often do, but we all know pain and hurt and loss and grief and joy and excitement and overwhelm and all of that. We can all connect on that level. So
And
that's
thank
why,
God. Right? Thank God
yes,
that's the universal language. Because
yes,
I've seen people who don't speak the same dialect or same like language, English, Spanish, Italian, but there's a connection when there's emotion where like you get it, and it's deeper than if you actually knew what the other person was maybe
yes.
verbally vocalizing, saying, describing whatever. It's the emotion that connects us and that binds us and that communicates.
Absolutely. And compassion, I would say, right? That compassion of just like, I see you, I feel you, I hear you, I'm here, right?
Yeah.
And which brings us to like that, what really stood out for me when you were reading from your book of just like, what was your superpower of walking in the room and being able to read it quickly to figure out how to control it, manipulate it, survive it, whatever it was, whatever you needed to be. And that is from our conditioned self, right? That is, but what I want to identify is that that's also a superpower, that
Mhm.
like a gift that we were born with, right? Not everybody has this gift. They don't, right? As far as like being able to walk into a room and feel the energy and feel, but there are more and more highly sensitive, I'll just say women, because that's what I work with. So that's what I
Yeah,
know this like
fantastic.
more of the connection with.
Hmm.
But yeah, being able to walk into the room and sometimes feeling overwhelmed because they can pick up everybody's energy and things like that. And that's something that you're born with. So when we can actually separate it from how we've been conditioned, we can return back to ourselves and understand it in a different way so that it does become our superpower, because it is our connector. It is our ability to connect with other people and feel their energy and feel the pulse of the room, or the pulse of what's happening. Now,
Yeah.
where it became conditioned, right? And this is where Katie and I were chatting earlier before we started recording of just like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can so resonate with that as far as, you know, people pleasing, making sure everybody else is okay, walking, even before you walk into the room, knowing like you can
Mm.
feel what's about to happen, right? And we were finely tuned for that with our parents, because we did have to deal with a lot of adult stuff. I grew up in ACOA, like I'm an ACOA, I'm an adult child alcoholic, or ACA. So being able to read the room, know how my dad was, know how my mom was. My dad was an alcoholic. So, like, is he in a good mood or is he in a weird mood? Is he in a like, what's going to happen today? And how is mom going to respond? And how is this going to go down? And then managing everybody's emotions and managing everybody, coming in as like the happy one and like just look at, I made an A, and whatever it was
Mhm.
I needed to be at that time, that's what I was. If I was my mom's moral support, that's what I was. If I was my dad's like emotional punching bag, that's what I was, right? Same with my mom. Like it could go all sorts of ways. My yeah. So
And you could look at
yeah.
all of that, you could look at that entire, like everything you just said as a complete liability of like, damn, like that is a liability of like, of mass proportion for a child to have experienced that, witnessed
Mhm.
that,
That was
growing up
at
like
eight,
8 fucking years old.
6, 7, 8, right? And
And
my grandparents too. So
right, like it goes, but I look at the words like liability and then asset, and I
mm,
see like the asset that you, again, there's power and there's purpose in the pain.
yeah,
The asset that you now carry with you today, because you can see other people who are so similar and who are struggling, and you can lovingly connect and call it out, right? Like I
hmm,
see that, and I'm gonna call bullshit. I'm gonna call bullshit
yeah,
on your conditioned self, lovingly and gently. And but only somebody who has walked that walk has the ability to do that, truly
yeah,
do that.
yeah.
And so, yeah, the words liability and asset.
Oh, I love
I
that.
know you were sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So being able to recognize, like I was always a super sensitive kid, just like you. And a lot of times too, we could have been made fun of for that. I know I was like, you're too sensitive, you're too emotional, you're too this, you're too that. It's actually a huge superpower. So when we can really heal that part of us and see ourselves clearly of just like, no, this is actually a really beautiful gift that you've been given. But it does come with with taking responsibility for, you're an adult now, we
Yeah.
can choose differently, we can act differently, and we can actually choose how we want to use this. It doesn't have to come from a place of fear. It's meant to come from a place of faith and love.
Mm. Well, that makes me think of like the responsibility that I have now, knowing what I know about my superpower and being
Hmm.
empathic. And I now, so I used to consider myself an extrovert because I can turn it on.
Yep.
I I have the energy, I can turn it on, put me around people, certain people especially, and I shine. Um, with that, though, came the awareness that I actually had this very almost equal introverted part of me that needs to retreat into solitude to fill back up. I
Yeah.
get filled up and depleted almost simultaneously when I am giving. I have to, and that's part of, excuse me, I was just looking at my human design, and we're not going to talk about that today, but there's a huge part of my human design that is hermit, that is like retreat. I must fill back up. And so I say that to tell all of you empaths and maybe highly sensitive people, when you get like overwhelmed and you're like drained, it is okay. Not only is it okay, I'm going to go as far as to say it is your responsibility to take care of yourself in whatever
Mm,
way you need to. And for me, that is compassionately declining interacting with others. It is taking
yes.
alone time and separate and away from so that I can fill back up, because the empath in me gets drained or I absorb. It's one or the other. I get like wrung out like a sponge where like I got nothing left, or I am that sponge that walks into a room and just soaks everybody's shit up, and
Yeah.
I have to like distance myself,
Yes.
and that's okay.
Hmm.
I have to remember that that's okay, because there's been many periods of time in my life where I really felt ashamed of my need to pull back.
Yeah.
There have been points where I've used that to go into the other extreme, which was severe isolation. And so
Right.
again, it is our responsibility to take with us all of these understandings and knowledge about ourselves, and to harness it in a way that benefits you in the world. Because coming back to, we're all just walking each other home.
Mm,
We're
ah.
all just, we're all just
Yeah.
stardust, just
Yeah.
on this journey that we call life, this rock
Yes.
floating through space that we call Earth. Um,
Mm,
we're all in this together.
absolutely. Ah. So, our question to you is, where do you want to take responsibility to move from survival into your superpower, right? What are your superpowers that maybe you didn't recognize again, before this, or uh, being able to sort of call out when you are playing, right? Are playing into that victim role, and where you actually want to choose differently so that you can really allow yourself to shine, so you can see yourself clearly, so you can let go of the hurt and you can move into the joy, the peace that comes with that, right? The love and the compassion that comes with that. So, um yeah, so much. So much was, yeah, that we went through. Um but really it's truly up to each one of us now, right? As adults, we are adults. I think it's important to recognize that, and to treat ourselves as such, and to even, dare I say, like, raise the standard for ourselves of just, of just being able to, because we deserve that. We deserve that. The people around us deserve that, right? That's,
Yeah.
again, that's just like showing up as the best version of ourselves. Um, and that's what we try to do every day here. So, um, yeah, anything you want to end on? Any little clips from your book or anything?
I should add that the title of my book is called Being Seen. We're recording this in January, and I'm in process of self-publishing, and so I don't know what the details or story is going to be come March when this airs. But the book is called Being Seen,
Yes.
because I spent a lot of my life trying to hide,
Mm.
and it's okay to be seen. It's okay to take up space. It's okay to be all that you are. And so yeah, hopefully there'll be more updates and info about that. But take a look. Support a young fledgling author by buying the book and giving it a read. And yeah. I'm just eternally grateful that I get to do all the things I get to do. Like I get
Right.
to write a book and I get to be on this show and I get to work with people and I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude.
Yes, beautiful. Yeah, I would encourage you all to start that gratitude list today if you haven't already.
Mm,
Uh, Fill your life with
mm,
gratitude and see how it changes.
mm,
Um, and I want to say it's more than okay to take up space. We're meant to take up space. So let's start doing it, ladies. And thank you so much for joining us for another beautiful episode, if I may say, of Sick Crooked Talk Straight and sharing your time, your energy, your love with us. So we are eternally grateful, and we just encourage you to stay curious, stay compassionate, and let your legacy shine because you deserve it. Mwah.